Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Love Your Life show. It is me, Susie Pettit, your certified life and wellness coach. I am here with an awesome guest today. I have Leah Remillet on the show. She is the host of the Balancing Busy podcast. She's an international speaker and, get this, an anti-hustle growth strategist. Okay. She has helped thousands ditch the overwhelm without sacrificing their home life, health, or happiness. She says she's the anti-hustle coach who hates the hustle culture. She loves to show people how to utilize systems, automations, and outsourcing in order to build something that allows you to be the best version of you in all areas of your life. Sounds like the Love Your Life show, right? So if you've been struggling to juggle it all and feel as if you're right up to the edge of complete burnout, this one's for you. Hello and welcome to the Love Your Life show, Leah.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so thrilled to have you on the show at this time of year, especially if listeners are listening live. It is a time that really can be viewed as a fresh start, like a chance for a pivot, a chance to do things differently is a lot of what I hear listeners say. And it can be a time of like incredible stress and heaviness and overwhelm. And I just wanted to start. I took a screenshot from your website. Can I read it real quick? It was just a wonderful. So you say there is so much to do. So you try to give more. You get up earlier. You give up your gym time. You try to squeeze a few more minutes of work during movie night or the kids' game. But now you feel it and your family feels it. And that to me, I was like, yes, like that is so relatable. Like I was on some treadmill and like they keep turning up the speed.
So yes. Oh my gosh.
Help.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it's so true. I think we as women, we give, which is beautiful. I mean, this isn't a negative. This is a positive. This is something that is innately us. We are nurturers. We take care of, we put ourselves out there. But in all of that giving, often we find ourselves, we just start comparing ourselves. We look at everything and we think, gosh, I should be doing more. I should be doing it better. I should be doing it faster. I should be doing it slower. I should be doing it more consistently. I should be right. And we just should ourselves to death. And so even though we really are doing so great, it feels like we're never enough.
Yeah. I'm in Australia now, and I don't know if this is an Australian thing, but I heard of this syndrome called the duck syndrome, where like on the outside, you look like a duck, like you're just floating on the water and you're like, and underneath the water, you're like, you're like so fast. And
their feet are just, they're, well, I guess they're not their feet, but like, yeah, they're just like,
whatever they are.
Right. Like so fast. No, that's so true. I have to pause and tell you, I love Australia so much. We, a few years ago, we took our kids, we took them out of school for a year and we traveled the world for a year. And so one of our stops was Australia, and we were there for about 6 weeks. And, you know, of all the amazing countries that we got to experience, Australia was one of the few where I was like, I could live here. Like, I love it here. So yeah, I love Australia.
I have goosebumps. And that's why, I mean, a lot of what we both do. So you have a podcast too, which we'll talk about at the end of the show, but a lot of what we both do is based on how we've been living our lives. And now the fact that I am in Australia is this like, wow. And my whole podcast show of, you know, teaching people how to love their life, and yours of balancing busy.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. We put those together and all problems are solved.
It's like, come on, people, we can help you. So if you are like the woman who's listening, who is that high achiever and really is, you know, puts a lot of stock and pressure on herself to be the good mother, to be the good wife, to be the good, you know, the good everything, who doesn't really want to hear like, just breathe, you know.
Amen, sister. I agree.
How would you help them sort of get started?
Okay. So the first thing I'm going to say is that we have to begin with a mindset shift. And I did not want to hear that. I'm going to say I'm the first person who was like, I will think my way out of this. I will work my way out of this. But this hustle culture that we've all been subscribed to for so long, of this just go, 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 just put in more, it's hurting us. And it's not just hurting us, it's hurting our kids, it's hurting our marriages, it's hurting our health. I mean, it's hurting us in multidimensionally. And so I remember thinking, there's no way out of this. Like, I just felt like I was on this hamster wheel and I couldn't get off. I mean, I was just trying to be everything for everyone. And I really did believe it had to be me. I really did think that that was true. And then I ended up in an ambulance because I hustled so hard for so long. I had given up sleep to try to get all the things done. So my kids were really little. And, you know, you're trying to get everything done. And I'd put them to bed at 8 and it would be like, oh my gosh, I have a little bit of time where no one is bugging me. No one's texting me. No one's calling me. The kids aren't saying, mom, 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 mom. Right. And so I started staying up later and later to get my work done, to get, you know, just all the different things done. And so that ended up being where I would work and just keep going until about 5 a.m. And I know other women who have done this. I have a friend who's a stay-at-home mom, and I frequently am talking with her and I'm like, stop doing this, because she's up till 2, 3, 4 in the morning because it's finally quiet. And that's when she's, you know, getting things done and whatever.
Getting things done, and also just finally like downtime to even like sit in front of the TV maybe. But
yes, exactly.
On sleep.
I mean, part of it is like, you know, you finally get to have a minute, and maybe you're, you know, doing some scrolling, or you're watching a show, or you're finally getting caught up on the kitchen and the laundry, or, you know, in my case, I was getting caught up on my workload. But clearly our bodies are designed to sleep. And when you choose to go months and months and months without sleeping, your body could get angry with you. And that is what happened to me. And mine went on strike, and it decided to take up its picket and go on strike in the middle of the day at the zoo. It was me and my kids. And they were tiny still. I mean, 2 were in a stroller, one's holding my hand. We're in the zoo at the alligator exhibit. I remember exactly where we were, and I can feel everything closing in. I can feel my hearing going out, my vision's going out, everything's tunneling in on me, and I know I'm about to black out. So I woke up on a stretcher being put into the ambulance, and I locked eyes with my daughter, and she was the oldest. She was like 4. And, you know, they were just these giant saucers. She was so terrified. And I knew I had to fix things. And so I set out like, this is going to change. I'm never letting this happen. Right. And I went with my very same overachiever mentality of I will, like, right. I'm going to like work this through. But one beautiful thing happened. So there was a day or two where I could not work. Like, my husband would not let me. I was, you know, got out of the hospital, was in bed, couldn't do anything. And the most shocking thing happened. The world kept spinning. The kids got fed. Like, the house did not fall apart. My business did not fall apart. Like, everything kept spinning. And I know, like,
kind of defeating, right? It's like, wait a minute. I thought I was the master of the universe, right?
It does not all hinge on me. What? Right? So that's why I'm saying we have to start with looking at what we believe and really asking the hard questions of, is this true? Is this reality? Or have I painted this? And so as I started recognizing, okay, maybe I'm not quite as important as I think I am. And maybe I can pull back and everything is not going to fall apart. That was a huge starting point. Now, I'm not going to end there because that's kind of the equivalent of breathe. And I'm not going to do that to people, right? So, but I am going to say, you've got to get honest with yourself and really look at where your mind is and what your thoughts and your beliefs are.
Well, and before you go there, I just really appreciate you bringing that up, because it also, like, it hurts us, obviously, because we're skimping on the sleep. We're having, I wrote in my notes, zoo experience of 2011 for you. I had a similar experience, but I had 36 seizures in a weekend, like, just,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it's just
terrifying.
Like, we are human bodies. There's a reason why we're designed to sleep like a third of our lives. Like, it does something for our brains and our thinking. But this idea that it hurts us, but I know sometimes us women, because of everything you started with saying, is that we get motivated sort of externally. It also hurts our kids. What I'm seeing, I coach a lot of women with older kids. My kids are now like 18 and above. that when we are like micromanaging and uber focusing on them, we're really over parenting, over functioning, raising a lot of under functioners or more anxious kids that feel like they can't do it themselves because like they're believing our story too. Like it has to be mom. Mom needs to tell me how to write the email, or mom needs to tell me to follow up with the biology teacher. So I just,
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I agree with you. Can you hear that?
No.
Okay. I absolutely agree with you. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because one of the things that was really hard, and I think every mom relates to this, is that we feel really guilty. Like if I don't do it, I'm a bad mom. And so a lot of the ideas I'm going to share, I think people are going to feel a little resistant at first, right? We're going to be like, oh, but I'm supposed to do that. And I felt the exact same way. And I remember, so I'll give a perfect example of this. I wanted us to have dinner as a family. Like that's really important to me. I love the idea of us all sitting around the table. I want to hear about their day. I want us all to reconnect. But in my head, I envisioned I have to make all the dinners, and they've got to be like legit dinners, like complete with fresh herbs, garnish, and pan sauce. Okay. Like, I mean, clearly I overdo everything like that. There is a theme here, but
that's so great.
I was doing this to myself where day after day, I'm super frustrated because I forgot to plan. I didn't pull any meat out of the freezer. I've got to run to the grocery store to finish it, whatever it might be. And so we weren't having the family dinner experience that I wanted. And I would feel all this guilt. Well, finally, one day I asked myself, what is the real goal? The real goal is we sit together as a family and reconnect. So what actually has to happen? We need to sit and talk and have some food to eat. And once I got to that, I built systems to make that easier. System one, I used one of those meal kits, right? There's a ton of them out there. I did HelloFresh, but we tried lots of them. There's so many out there. We did 3 nights a week because I happen to have 3 kids, and each of them were assigned one of those nights. So they got to pick the meal, but they also had to cook the meal. Now in the early years, yes, I was absolutely assisting. I was the sous chef, and, I was helping them through because they were learning. But years later, they do it all. They're incredibly competent at cooking. I have one that we're taking to college in 2 weeks, and it's so cute. Her little dorm roommates are so excited because they all know she cooks, and they're like, we're not going to starve.
Yeah. I know. I heard that you did that. I love that idea. It's just like, of course they can cook. And
but it's easy to feel guilty, right? I would think, oh, but they have their sports schedule. They have, they've already been at school. They've got activities. Like, I'm a bad mom if I make them also cook. And I had to just stop myself and say, no, I am teaching them to be self-reliant, independent, and confident. And the way that we are confident is when we recognize that we're capable, right? Confidence is linked, real confidence, not surface confidence. Real confidence is linked to our grittiness, to our capabilities, and to this belief that like, I can figure it out. Well, if we as moms rob them of getting to figure things out for themselves, because we're believing this lie that if I don't do it for them, I mean, what am I good for? Why am I here? I'm not a good mom. Then we're hurting ourselves.
Yes, I love that. I love that. I love that you do that. Can you just finish up? Because you also said with your meals, you do one, what did you call it? Yo-yo night or?
Yes. Okay. So we do, 3 nights a week, the kids are in charge of cooking. They get to choose the dinner. They're also making it. 1 night a week is my husband. Guarantee you that is takeout. Okay. He's not going to cook. Every once in a while he does, but it's few and far between. Right. Okay. So 1 night's takeout.
But again, letting go of what it's like, okay.
Yes.
So,
like who cares? Like, why am I going to be like, oh my gosh, if I have to cook, you should have to cook. Like, no, if he wants to get takeout, I didn't have to cook. Like, again, I had to bring myself
sitting
down
down, we're talking, and there is food to eat. Yeah.
Yes. And I will admit, like, I really had to keep having those talks with myself, right? Because I'm like, you should have to cook if I have to cook. No, that's not, right. That's not the goal here. So, okay. So that's another one. Then another one is yo-yo night, or another way to call it is fend for yourself night. So it's basically everyone gets to pick whatever they want to eat. And this is where, again, we're going to have to do a little bit of letting go. Your little one might be like, I'm having cereal or peanut butter and jelly. And you're like, oh, you are not getting the proper vitamins tonight, right? Like, let it go. They're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And just let them.
We'll
Now,
get it
if you have
tomorrow.
little ones, I would highly suggest turning yo-yo night or fend for yourself night into like something extra special and fun where you put a blanket on the floor and it's picnic style. I mean, what an incredible tradition and memory. They're going to remember like, oh my gosh, once a week we got to eat on the floor and you didn't have to cook because everybody just went in the fridge for either leftovers or cereal or a sandwich or, you know, something frozen that they throw in the air fryer, whatever. So okay. So that is now 5 of the nights. One night, my husband and I go out every single night. So we have date night every week. So really my kids kind of have fend for yourself twice a week.
That's okay.
And then the last night is Sunday dinner and I make that. So I make 1 to 2 dinners a week, but we have dinner together 6 nights a week. And just letting go of these beliefs completely changed my relationship with dinner time, which I will say was fraught for many, many years. And now it's this beautiful thing where it just feels really good.
Yeah. Well, and it's just pointing to the power of the mindset shift of like, okay, what is important to me? It's sitting, eating, talking, and getting out of that mindset shift that it all needs to be me. I also need to highlight for listeners what you're modeling there is that it's not modeling the mother martyr or the, like it is, you know, part of family dynamics for the mother to slay herself or everything is, you know, mom's responsibility. You're modeling this team responsibility. Like we're all part of a team and we're part of a house. And that those are the houses that really we have less entitled and, you know, less like just more well-rounded kids coming out of this. Like it is a team and it's not all mom.
And I think to take that one step further, just as a mom, think about what you're trying to show your daughters. Are you trying to show them that they, because they're going to go into their homes and they're going to model you. They're going to be like you. So if you can see your current situation, you're like, you know, I feel a little resentful. This is really hard. Like when does anyone ever take care of me? I think of the little red hen. If you're feeling that, you are going to pass that right to your daughter and she's going to have to feel that too, unless you model a different way. So it's not just for you, it's for her. She needs to see you show that it's a team effort. So I love that you shared that.
And I have sons. I have 5 sons and I found it very important for me to model that like, hey boys, like this is a team here again, that this isn't your, and when they're making dinner or when they're not doing it for me, we're doing it for us.
Right. This is for the family. We all can, we all contribute. And I frequently think like, I don't want my future daughter-in-law to be like, thanks a lot. Right. I want her to be like, this is amazing. He helps. And so I'm trying really hard to raise this future husband to understand that like, you better not expect that she just does everything and takes it all on. So I so agree with you.
I love it. And so it's just like zooming in, looking at what helps women today and in this sort of season of craziness, and then also zooming out and noticing that there are benefits there. It's just changing the mindset and not passing this down. So thank you. What are some other things people can do? So they're not breathing, they're looking at, you know, I love I think the dinner will help a lot. We're just trying to look a little differently to like, how can I do this differently? And not, okay, I've done this every other September and now we're thinking we're going to do it again and somehow it's going to be different.
Right? Yes. Okay. So what I just explained, I got into the details of dinner, but ultimately I designed and came up with some systems. Now, systems should be simple. If they are not simple, we will not do them, right? So systems inherently should be a way to simplify something that we do over and over again. So I talked about meal kit. That's a system. Having fend for yourself night. That's a simple system. And then having, offering out like, hey, we each take a different night. Each of the kids take one. My husband takes one. Since we're a family of 5, that leaves me with 2 and the rest of them take 1. And so those are all systems. Now, when I stack each of those systems on top of each other, I've stacked 3 systems on top of each other, all of a sudden the whole dinner catastrophe is no longer a catastrophe. So we can look at that in every area. Let's say it's laundry. Let's say laundry causes you huge headaches. You're always behind. There are people out there who are incredible at laundry and never lose socks. I have a friend like this and I'm in awe of her. I am not that human being. Okay. That has never been me. And so laundry was one of those things that was really hard. I'm like, okay, I need to create a system that's going to work better. So it was it's trial and error. Some people say I do a load of laundry every single day. That seems like slow torture to me because I loathe laundry. So the fact that I have to do it every day just feels mean. And so I'm like, no, I will have laundry days. When the kids were young and I did do their laundry too, it's like, okay, I'm going to do them all on 2 days and I'm just going to keep working them through. I'm going to set timers because I am horrible about forgetting to switch them. So it's like just this simple little system or trigger where I'm like, hey Siri, in 50 minutes, remind me to switch over the laundry or whatever. As the kids have gotten older, they're all in charge of their own laundry. And then you can run into problems where it's like, well, everyone's trying to do laundry on the same Friday because, they're all completely out of clothes and they have plans. So they all have laundry days. So Monday and Tuesday are my days. One of the kids has Wednesday, one of the kids has Thursday, and one of the kids has Saturday. And so then they know, like, hey, if it's not your day, you have to ask permission to do laundry. And if they say no, you can't get upset and you have to wait until your day. And so and then everybody understands the boundaries and the rules. You can't leave your laundry in the laundry room. You've got to bring it all the way through. And so just, again, it's a simple system. And so what I want to encourage people to do is look at your life. Look at where your big frustrations and headaches are. What is the thing that you keep getting stuck on? Is it that you've really been wanting to be more proactive in your health? And you've been like, gosh, I want to start exercising, but I keep seeming to get in my own way. How can we simplify it? When I first really set out and said, I am going to be active, I am going to exercise, I couldn't give much time to it. At least I couldn't mentally. Like in my head, I was like, I refuse to give it more than, I think my honest very first amount of time was 10 minutes. I was going to
say 5 minutes works, right? 5 minutes is better than no minutes.
Exactly. I was just trying to build the habit. I was like, I'm just building consistency because consistency is always the key to success. Right. And so I'm like, okay, I'm trying to reframe and teach myself that I am someone who exercises. And so it was like, I found 10-minute YouTube videos. I did, I spent one, I don't know, 30 minutes, researched, found a few that I thought looked good. And then I was like, okay, great. Now I have those saved. I just had them saved in a notes app so that I could go find them really quick. And I'd click on a different one and I'd do 10 minutes and I'd be like, check, I worked out. Then eventually it moved up to 15 minutes and then 30 minutes. And then, it went on. And so that was my first system. But then I realized it was really, really easy to talk myself out of exercising early in the morning, right? Like I didn't have much desire to do it. So if anything went wrong, I was like, just kidding, can't do it. Never mind. And I'd be done. So every time I'd catch and I'd look at what got in my way, instead of beating myself up, and this is the real lesson, often when something goes wrong, we beat ourselves up and we say, see, I can't do it. We have to reframe that. So I would get up early. I'm going to go, get ready to exercise. And I'm not even kidding. This legitimately happened. I could not find a rubber band. And I was like, never mind, I can't work out. I was mad. I was done. I went back to bed. So you know what I did the next day? I was like, okay, how are we going to avoid that? Made sure I found rubber bands. And I started, and I've done this every day since. I started putting all my workout clothes right on top of each other. So my shoes, my socks, my, leggings.
I do too. I have a whole little pile, right?
Yes, with the hair tie on the top. It's sitting in a pile so that I could protect myself from what was going to get in the way. Okay, next thing that got in the way was like AirPods aren't charged. Never mind, can't work out, back to bed. Okay, I'm going to make sure that I always put those on the charging port. I even I'm to the point where my water is already poured. Yes, it's at room temperature. That doesn't bother me. I'm fine. It's just better that it's already waiting and ready for me. So it's just constantly looking at what is getting in your way from your progress and how can you simplify? How can you put in triggers into your routine so that you will have more success?
Yes. And yes, 100%. And also just a growth mindset around it that we're learning. So all these things that you've shared, we're sort of like coming in on your back end of like, oh, in laundry, we have these days, and in dinner, we have these days. And I know, I've been listening to you long enough and follow you on Instagram. I know there's that back end of the kid being like, I don't want to make dinner, or it's
totally,
or you not finding your hairband. And we just need to just recognize that's part of the path, and yet to keep going, to keep at it, because on the other side of this is ease and feeling, and not this harried craziness that not only do we not want to do, but I and you are here to tell people that we can't keep doing. At some point, our body is connected to our like robotic superwoman brain that's like, keep going. And, you know, that's where we see diagnoses and health problems. So I really appreciate that overall, you know, just looking at these different areas where we could set up systems, and thinking, you know, your question is to like, where do we feel like we keep getting triggered? Maybe it's exercise, maybe it's laundry, maybe it's morning routine. And then I'm always going to push people to say like, I think the next step is they're like, where can you let go of control? You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. It's so fascinating because our natural inclination when we're trying to solve anything is, what do I need to add? Right?
Mm-hmm.
What do I need to do? That is the natural inclination for all of us. There's a fascinating book called Subtract by Leidy Clouts. I actually had him on the Balancing Busy podcast last year. And his whole book, the whole premise is this idea that often the best answer is actually to subtract, and yet our inclination is to add. And so when we're talking about balancing busy, having more harmony in our lives, feeling more content instead of chaotic, often what we need is to look and say, it's okay to say no. It's okay to subtract this. If I'm trying to, I mean, you know, even when we're looking at dinner, I subtracted it from my plate. I let a meal kit do a bunch of the work. I let my husband pick up takeout and not worry about it. I let us, you know, let the kids pick crummy food for fend for yourself night. And right, like all of that was really an act of subtraction that ended up making the difference. And often, you know, I look at us and what we're doing and this tendency to overschedule, to be so worried that, oh, we don't want our kids to miss out on anything. We want them to be involved in everything, but we're seeing them overwhelmed, exhausted, dealing with experiences of anxiety and burnout and depression. And, you know, we need space to be still. I think about how kids in elementary school get to have recess. And there's different research studies that have been done, and they find that when the kids come back from recess, they are more polite, they have a better attention span, they do better work, their cognitive abilities rise. Like they needed that break. And I remember just thinking one day, it hit me, I'm like, well, why do we grow out of that? We probably don't. Like I probably still need the grown-up version of recess. And so even recognizing, forcing myself to say, you know what, I'm going to set a timer for 45 to 55 minutes. And then I'm going to stand up for 5 minutes. And, you know, maybe I'm going to do a few swan dives and little yoga stretching, or maybe I'm going to say some affirmations, or maybe I'm honestly just going to go run and switch the laundry really quick and then run right back. Right. That might be what I do. But getting up, moving around, sometimes I take longer and I, you know, take a walk around the block with the dog. It's amazing how much more productive I am when I come back. I've had that moment to just recenter. Maybe I was starting to get a little distracted, and now I'm back and I'm like, oh yeah, I was supposed to get this done. And so there is power in the pause. And I think that is something really, really hard for a lot of us, especially, you know, the overachievers. We feel like I can get a little more done. I'm going to just keep trying to get a little more done, but the cost is too high.
100%, too high. And it also, it ends up like we're doing all these extra things because we want to be the good mom or the good friend or the good, but then what I find is when I'm adding it all on and not taking that break, I'm actually in reality like less of a good mom. Maybe on paper I'm a good mom, but I'm like snipping at my kids because I've like signed up for some random school thing I don't want to do. And then I'm like, be quiet while I make the cupcakes for your teacher that you never asked me to make. And
oh my gosh. Yes. 100%. That actually just made me think. So when my kids were in elementary school, I volunteered in each of their classrooms for an hour every week. And I loved it. It meant so much to me. And, you know, you get to, I'm going to just say, I'm such an advocate for this. I remember there was someone who, she made a big thing about how I don't go to my kids' classes, and like, she was so proud of it. And I was like, oh no, like it just, I loved it because there is a version of our kids at home because they're safe and, you know, this is home. There's a different version of them in the classroom. So me getting to go in there and see that, I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. And it was really powerful. But I do want to caveat and say, but I wasn't much for signing up to be part of the fundraiser or part of the, you know, harvest festival activity or part of, right? Like I understood that I can't do it all. I can be it all, but I cannot do it all. So I looked and said, where is the priority? What is my biggest goal? What's the most important thing? I love to ask myself, there's this beautiful quote about good, better, best. So I think for us as women, I think the majority of us, okay, outside of like, you know, our social media scrolls and maybe like our trashy TV show, besides that, the majority of our time is going to good things. Like we don't have bad things that we're doing. So we have to start looking and elevating and saying, okay, this is good, but is there something better? And then what is the best thing I could do? So I looked and I said, you know what? Volunteering for all these things, that's good. But I believe that the better thing is for me to be in their classroom. And the best thing would be for me to try to consistently be in there. Right. So I said, okay, then I'm going to say no to, I think I was on the PTA one time for a year and I was like, nope, not my thing. Not going to do it. Right. Like I'll let other people do that. I'll be the one in the classroom helping with reading or whatever. And so, you know, just that's quite a tangent to get to the point of
it's not what you're bringing up here. And what I love, and I want to highlight for listeners is your message and my message of like, do what works for you, but we need to be in touch with what works for us. When we're in people pleasing, we're sort of in touch with what works for other people. So that's what got me to sign up for the PTA or got me to sign up to bake cookies when I don't bake at all, or I don't enjoy baking. So it's this, do what works for you. And to be like, for you, you enjoy going into the classroom and reading. Other people, like the woman you mentioned, probably it feels like awful for them. And they probably enjoy leading a fundraising campaign. And so it is, but what we need to do is tap into our own, you know, guidelines and values. And so could you speak a little, and this is the perfect time to speak of your 3 Ps that you
Yes. Okay. So the 3 Ps of productivity. Okay. So ultimately what we're talking about is we all want to feel and be more productive. Now I want to talk first about like, what is productive? Productive is to produce something. Okay. So sometimes we're busy, like we haven't stopped moving, but we get to the end of the day and we're like, it's really hard to explain what we did. And we're like, I never stopped. But I don't know if I can really explain all the things I did. We want to shift that to feeling productive, right? It's the difference between frantic and fulfilled. Fulfilled still has the word full in it. Like the day is still full. It just feels better. And so when we're looking at productivity, producing better results, getting better outcomes, it comes down to these 3 Ps. The first is priorities. Okay. We have to know what matters most to us, which I love that you just touched on that because I figured out for me personally, I wanted to be in their classroom. And one person might say, I can handle that once a month. And another person might say, I can handle that never, but
it might drain them. They might need,
but I'll do something else. Right. But we have to know it's the same thing that happened with dinner. What is the real priority? It's us sitting together as a family. So we have to ask ourselves, like, first things first, what is the priority here? What is the goal? What do I want the most? Once we understand that and we set a plan, we need to be committed to be present, to actually be there for this thing that we are saying matters, right? Because often, you know, every single one of us, if you are a mom, you are going to say the most important thing is my kids, my family. That is the most important thing. And I'm going to ask you, if we asked them, would they agree? Or could you accidentally hear an answer like her phone or her laptop or would there be an answer? Yeah. Would there be an answer that would make you cringe, that you would be like, what? No. The best way to fix that is just to be present, is that when you're in, you're in. So if I'm working on, I don't know what it is. If I'm working on the grocery list, I'm working on the grocery list. If I'm working on the family budget, I'm working on the family budget. If I'm with the kids, I'm with the kids, but I remove the other distractions and I make sure that I am truly present for that thing.
I really, you said like, be where your feet are is one of the things I've heard you say. And I did a podcast earlier in the spring on ADHD, but also just like sort of fragmented, defocused brain. And one of the things is like, do one thing at a time, so it's that like, if you were in the classroom reading a book, try to be in that experience of reading the book and your brain goes racing off for what you need to target, bring it back to the book. Or if you're doing your list for, everything. So thank you. Yes. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, I love that. And this is a good time for me to say, I am ADHD and dyslexic. I was diagnosed in 2nd grade. And yes, like sometimes I read the memes and I see the things that are like, I can't be organized. I can't be balanced because, I'm ADD. And I'm like, yes, you can. Yeah. I am the proof. And I'm not like a little bit, you guys, like I am full blown, massively dyslexic, ADHD. I had to be in the special classes my entire life.
Wow.
Like, I mean, I was grades behind my classmates in math and science. And so I'm telling you, if I can do this, anyone can do it. So
thank you so much for sharing that, because I do feel like sometimes we resist against the structure or that, what I'm calling structure. Whereas I find that the freedom for me, just the having a process, having a system, it might take a little extra time ahead of time to plan out what works for our family or what, but then it's like that short-term discomfort for long-term gain, instead of like us going to the short-term ease of like, screw it, let's just all get angry at dinner again for long-term discomfort.
That is exactly. Systems have saved me. And I was leaning towards short-term comfort, which created a lot of long-term angst. And when I finally realized, you know what, it's actually worth the short-term discomfort for the long-term ease, it changed my life. It changed everything. And so I agree. And I get the desire to resist it. I had that tendency. I feel like I'm a little rebellious. I don't want to be put in a box. I like, full control and freedom. But what I found was the more that I used systems, boundaries, the more that I allowed these in my life, the more freedom I had. The more white space I had, the more joy I had, the more I felt like I was being a good mom and not that snappy, a little too tired, a little too high strung, a little too overburdened, all of those things.
Well, I just wanted to, you said boundaries, and I work a lot with my listeners on like, boundaries in relationships. So one of the things that you mentioned with this second P with presence is some of the boundaries you use, like phone notifications and just this again with listeners to just think outside the box with your mindset. Like boundaries also are like, no, I volunteer in the classroom. So if people are asking me to volunteer at the fun fair, that I get to say no. And maybe I'll feel a little guilt, but we'll work with Susie and Leah through that guilt. Come on. But that sort of like those structures feel uncomfortable in the moment when you're like, oh, I'm turning my phone off after 7, or, oh, I'm not going to have any notifications on. That's the short-term discomfort. Long-term ease to our nervous system, to our health, to all of it, to our kids, to our modeling. So thank you.
Yes. I recently did an episode that was like the people pleaser's guide to saying no. And it was like all these polite ways of like, hey, we don't have to feel like a jerk, but we do need to be able to get a little uncomfortable, but here's how to make it as uncomfortable as possible. So yes, I agree, because boundaries are critical. And I find, honestly, most of the time I'm having to set boundaries against myself. Like I'm my biggest problem, right? And so I get in my own way all the time. And so this idea of trying to set boundaries, and I really do think that one of the biggest boundaries is with our phone. Like we just have to understand that our phones, we have mini computers that are available and, and right here all the time. And unfortunately, the way that all of the social media outlets make money is to get us to stay on their platforms as long as possible. And they are investing millions upon millions, the most brilliant brains. They are going after the same people that were hired for the Las Vegas casinos to figure out how to get people to stay in those casinos as long as possible, to not realize that, night had become day, had become night. they are the same minds that they've hired to try to keep us on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to understand that they are very strategic in how they're going to get us to stay. If we don't have at least some plan, some system, some strategy of how we're going to get off, we've all done it. We've gotten sucked in, and all of a sudden you look and you're like, it has not been that long, right? Or you go look at your settings on your phone and you're like, there's no way I spend that much time on there. No way. But that's what the phone is showing. And so one of mine is I have alarms that go off on my phone. I just created custom alarms that say, are you being the fully present mom that you're meant to be right now? And I have them set, there's at specific times during the day that I know are my weak points, right? So the kids get home at about 2:30 and I'm really good at the very beginning, you know, oh, how are you? Snacks, talking, all that stuff. But then about 4, you know, it's not quite time to make dinner and make sure all that's going, but it's, you know, they're maybe in the middle of stuff and all of a sudden I'm back on my phone. So like there is an alarm that goes off that's like, are you on your phone right now? Don't be, right? So another thing is like switching it to airplane mode and putting it in a drawer when they get home. And you're like, I will come back to it after dinner. There's not really an emergency for me right now. Now, maybe there's a different time where I'm like, actually, there is something. Okay, fine.
A kid is still out or something, but
but often it's like, what can we do to protect ourselves? And again, it's setting these triggers that, you know, there's triggers all over the place that are maybe leading us towards actions we're not super proud of. Well, let's go ahead and say, hey, you know what? I can utilize that for my benefit. I can start setting some triggers that actually encourage me to be more of that best version of me that I know I'm capable of and that I want to be.
Well, and this is a great example of like short-term discomfort, long-term pain. Like short-term, spend 10 minutes in your settings app today. And just because the app has the notifications on to send you a bing every time you get an email, or like go in, turn that off. So then you aren't that, then those are triggers. Like you're saving yourself. It saved me so much. The only thing I have on are my text messages, but it's still always on silent. And then I just tell my kids, because they're always like, well, what if there's an emergency? I've told my kids to call me twice and it comes through. Like and I've been specific about what emergencies are. Emergencies are not that they can't find their sock. Basically, I'm like, if you're bleeding, you know, or you've been stranded, but you know, my kids are all out of the house now. So if they're stranded, I shouldn't be their first call. Like that, you know, I'm not your emergency call. So anyhow, I like pointing that out and just sort of take the time to set up those systems. I also, in terms of motivation to do this, I know a lot of us moms get so like tightly held to what our kids are doing with their cell phones. And that's where a lot of our fights are with like what they're doing with their phones. And I just really, what I find, you know, I've worked with teens, and the thing that changes behavior is our behavior, not our words, not our like Charlie Brown. It's like watching us. Oh, I'm putting my phone down, or speaking out loud. Oh my God, I spent an extra half hour on Instagram right there that I didn't mean to have. You know, and talking through like, that's so interesting that my brain was telling me that was important. But modeling some of that for our kids is the way to get this.
It's so powerful.
Phones are not going away. So
we have to get better with them, because they are part of us, and we have to help our kids, right? Like we didn't grow up with cell phones our whole lives, but they have. And so we need to model and help them to learn and see, you know, we're all like, I remember when I had to memorize phone numbers and I had to call the house line and ask if so-and-so was available, you know, like we think of these things and it's so different for our kids. And I agree with you. Modeling is such a huge part of it. And I think there's so many other things that we can do, but to start by just modeling and having those conversations, I agree. So powerful.
And taking care of ourselves so that we're not playing. Before we finish, I left off and we never got to the third P.
Yes.
Listeners are going to be like, wait.
Okay. The third P is purpose. And we can really look at this 2 ways. One is make decisions on purpose. Stop letting things happen to you. You make things happen. So make decisions on purpose. When we are our most productive, we are not going at the whim of what our inbox says or our friend that texted us asked or whatever other things. We have purpose and we are going after it. So making decisions on purpose, or another way to say this is just knowing those core values, right? Like coming back to, we have to know what matters most. But any of us, if we go and we say, okay, I'm thinking back to my most productive day. Let's use day before vacation, because we're all like super productive the day before vacation.
Point. Yeah.
Isn't that so true? Yeah. Okay, if you think about like reverse engineer that, why was I so productive? Because I didn't give myself the excuse that I could do it later, because I couldn't do it later. I was literally going to be getting on a plane. Like I had to get it done, right? So what do we do? Okay, that day that you were so productive, what happened? I'm guessing you got super clear on your priorities. You knew exactly what you should be working on. You stayed super present. Like you're like, no, don't distract me. I have to get this done. Yeah. And then what was the third thing? We were very purposeful. We were making decisions. We were moving forward. We were like, got to get it done, move on to the next thing. So I think, you know, like using those priorities, presence, purpose, and then seeing that in the example of the day before vacation, we're like, yes, I see how to use that. So now you take that into everyday life. Now I'm going to say, day before vacation is usually kind of frantic, right? Because it's like, oh my gosh, I got to get so much done. I am not trying to advocate that, because that gets us into that hustle culture of every day is supposed to be like, how much can I get done? But I am saying, give yourself permission to carve out, block out time and say, you know what, these first 2 hours of the morning, or whenever you feel you're most productive. Some people are in the afternoon, some people are in the morning, some people are at night. They put the kids down, you know, at 7 or 8, and they're like, I want to take 2 hours and just get stuff done. Use this framework, really prioritize what you're going to work on, be present and all in for each thing, and make decisions on purpose. And when we do that, we see our productivity just soar.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So listeners are going to be like, what? Her. So I'm like, preach it. And when you said like making decisions, I just felt like my whole system relaxed. I'm like, that's what it's about. Like deciding, you know, whatever it like that this is our time to sit with our kid, or this is our time to, yeah. So anyhow, they want more. Where can they find you? Where would you direct listeners?
So I already know they love podcasts, and they obviously make really good decisions on the podcast they listen to. So I think they should also make sure they're listening to Balancing Busy podcast. So as soon as you're done with this episode, first you should just leave her a 5-star review, because this podcast, I love it. And so, you know, why not? And then go do your search, find Balancing Busy, and subscribe to my podcast. And so I think that's probably the most fun way. And then, of course, they can also go to balancingbusy.com. They'll find all the things about me. And I've got tons of amazing free gifts available to help. I have one masterclass that will teach you how to drop 8 hours a week. So a whole work day of just time wasters. And I'll show you. And it's actually way, way more than 8 hours. But you pick and choose the ones you want, and I promise you're going to get 8 hours. So we've got that. I mean, there's so many things. But yeah, okay. Step one, just follow the podcast.
Too, listeners. So smbwell.com/265. It'll be in there. All her magic, all her awesomeness. Thank you so much for coming on the Love Your Life show today, Leah. I just love what you're doing, and I love how you're supporting all of us in Balancing Busy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.